Back on NFL Daily. It's a segment that's taken many different forms.
It really has.
Gestation.
I've watched it grow up right in front of my eyes.
I've got a suitcase packed in the newsroom. I'm headed
I've heard
on an airplane.
a lot of stories about the suitcase, Greg. It's, you know what people are talking about. The streets are talking here at
what
NFL
about?
Media. And if you want to see
Look at the
online,
size
just the
of that
scale, that's next to a desk. So it's the size of a standard desk. The height
It's
of
a
that.
waist-high desk.
Yes, if people want to check
For
out
the standard height waist.
my gigantic suitcase, why not take a gigantic suitcase? I was packing a normal suitcase and everything fit fine. And I was like, but what if I want to buy a bunch of stuff there for the family, for you guys? You know, I'm buying
right,
like major
you can buy
gear,
me a
like
gift.
being a big old suitcase to bring the stuff
Twist
back
my
in.
arm. I will accept gifts.
But yes, I am a small man, so having that thing next to me, it's like my big brother.
My reaction when I saw him walk into the newsroom today, it just brought me joy.
Now I'm annoyed. I'm ready for this segment.
Okay.
It started out as, what was it? Weird guys who rule.
Weird guys who rule. I don't even know who we were talking about. Then
guys
Kirk.
who rule, guys who
After
rock.
the Thursday night.
Kirk Cousins.
After
that's right.
the night game.
Your cousin
Yeah.
is a weird guy who rules.
Yeah,
in the
he
nicest
is.
way possible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this is simplified.
Mm-hmm.
That was also an
It's-
IPA text.
Yes,
So,
yes.
from all of
We
us.
established all of us mutual IPA text.
This is a great idea.
I was not drinking an IPA. I was working that night with
What a
Gerald
sucker.
McCoy. I was
Company man.
making some podcast magic. But I'm excited about this. Colleen, why don't you get us going?
All right.
Guys who rule.
Guys who rule. The Harrisons from Minnesota.
Mm.
Harrison Phillips and Harrison Smith arriving to London. Wait until you see how they looked, looking like a Peaky Blinders absolute vision. And they had the dark three-piece suit on, the overcoats, the Jeff caps. If you check out the Vikings Instagram, it has an incredible song playing. It's raining. It's a whole vibe. Harrison Phillips has a pocket watch. So they looked very London chic here, but also kind of dangerous, which I like. So maybe they could like rule the city, like in some type of underworld that's going on in London. That's sort of what I played out in my head. However, both Harrisons then went on to sack Aaron Rodgers in that game. Harrison Phillips, he had said that Rodgers, of all of the quarterbacks playing right now, is his favorite, absolute favorite to play against because he's one of the smartest out there. So I love that he ended up taking him down in London. Also, he honeymooned Harrison Phillips in Europe this past summer and said that he often got recognized, which I love for him.
That's great.
And it's also just like a show of how popular the NFL is everywhere. Especially just as a defensive tackle, he's getting recognized.
I can't imagine he would get recognized many places outside Minnesota, but Vikings fans travel. I think they were probably out there having
Guys
a
who
nice
rule
vacation.
get recognized.
Yeah,
Guys who rule.
Harry99 on Twitter he is. But then Harrison Smith, Harry the Hitman, he also had a sack of Aaron Rodgers, celebrated with the belt championship celebration that
discount
Rodgers.
double check.
Yes, the discount double check. And then there were all of these fun things that I saw about him, how in the offseason, this past offseason, when free agency was approaching, he kind of forgot that free agency was coming. And he was like, oh, I should talk to my agent about this because he was working as a carpenter and a welder with his brother-in-law.
Wow.
He also fixes bicycles and builds furniture. And a couple of off seasons ago, he bought a plot of land and talked about renting bulldozers, digging ditches, and laying the wiring because that's the most fun thing to do in the off season. So Harrison Smith and Harrison Phillips, the Killer Harrys, I love them. They rule.
I can't believe how much Harrison Phillips rules. I mean, listening to you talk about him for a while until we got into some of the track. What was the thing at the very end that he was buying the plot of land for?
The bulldozer, that's
bulldozer.
Harrison Smith.
Okay, that's Harrison.
He also has his pilot's license. Like, what?
They all kind of almost sounded like they were Colleen's, like, if you were an NFL player, you would maybe be these. Like, if you were an NFL player, you wouldn't forget that free agency was coming up because you had some weird side job to try to
I
make
felt
yourself
like
sane.
it was so relatable. And
You were seen.
I'm like, oh
You were
man,
seen.
what time of year is it again? It's coming up so soon.
Summer of Harry.
Summer of Harry. Yeah.
I also like that we talked about a Vikings player other than Sam Darnold. All right, you go. Another guy.
I had one too. Vibes alone. Van Ginkel as a Viking, but
Ginkel!
I want to get to guys who rule. I want to get to a safety cluster first.
Okay.
Cluster of 3 safeties who I think totally rule. Jaquan Brisker, Jesse Bates, Xavier McKinney. Big NFL wants you to devalue the safety position, but these 3 players are perfect representatives of the 2024 defensive renaissance. They are physical enough. They can roll down to blitz or defend the run, although Xavier McKinney plays deep. They can play in the slot. They're fast enough to roam the field, and they're legitimately affecting games week after week. Jaquan Brisker, hope he and Tommy Tremble are both doing okay, by the way. A sack, a pressure, an interception, 2 pass breakups, 1 forced fumble, and 40 tackles. Jesse Bates, who Arthur Smith referred to him as, when they were getting ready for the matchup, as the Falcons' Jason Bourne, said that the Steelers changed their entire offense to avoid the middle of the field just to take out Bates. Sorry, Colleen, against the Eagles. Iced the game. He's got 3 pass breakups, a pressure, a hurry, 2 forced fumbles, an interception, 37 tackles. And Xavier McKinney has made history as the first player on a new team to have an interception in 5 consecutive games. And his DC, Jeff Hafley, called him the best safety in the league. These dudes are the new era of safeties, and yet somehow very vintage in a way as well. These dudes freaking rule.
They do.
They do rule, and the safety position rules, it's always ruled, and it's crazy to me, to your point, how undervalued it is. You can get a pretty mediocre cornerback in free agency for more money than the top of these safety market gets. I mean, McKinney ended up getting paid pretty well, but when you compare it to other positions, it's really not that much. And I think you said it very well. They are showing that they are way more valuable than, let's say, than like a slightly better than average cornerback.
I agree 100%. And they're being asked to do more, too. They're asked to play more positions. This is the true hybridization of the defensive backfield. It's happening there. You're watching more safeties play in the slot than ever before. You're watching sub packages feature multiple safeties versus relying on corners. And you have to, because offenses are understanding that now they're getting bigger and more physical, and they're trying to attack smaller defenses. Okay, well, enter guys like this who rule. And they're saying, no, they can do a variety of different things. And they are actually, the fact that they are legitimately affecting games in this way is significant because, again, the position market wants you to think that they're just sort of back there doing something.
Every year I overrate them on the top 101 free agents. Maybe I don't overrate them.
I was going to say, maybe you don't.
Because you know they rule, Greg.
I know they rule, but relative to what they make on the open market, it's like, I have so many safeties near the top, and then they just sit out there on the market, and people are like, oh, fine, we'll sign them for like $8 million.
They're the running back of the defense.
Pretty much. That's
Ooh, I like how you put that.
Yeah.
Very well said. And yeah, you know who doesn't rule is the concussion spotter at the Bears game last week in the protocol. Not to get serious.
That was hard. That was hard.
During a fun segment.
What the heck, Greg?
Sorry, but it's like, this is a guy who's had 3 different concussions now in his career, and you're not protecting the players from themselves. He had to report it the next day. That's a bad job, and I feel like we're seeing that. Let's get to something more fun. Let's get to Brian Thomas Jr.
Ooh.
My guy. You know what rules? Speed rules. No one ran faster on a football field than Brian Thomas Jr. on that long touchdown pass against the Colts, which unfortunately got a guy fired. The Colts cut their cornerback a day later after giving up this touchdown. And that's not nice. And it's nice to have great speed. We knew that about Brian Thomas. But the thing that really impresses me so far this season are his hands and his versatility. He is ready to go. He's scoring touchdowns, but I went back, watched his targets, and he's been really good on in-breakers. Like, I'm not saying he's Chris Godwin, but people thought he was this one-trick pony coming into the league, and he can run routes. And because of that speed, which is maybe the best in the entire league, like it's Tyreek Hill level speed, it's Rashid Shaheed level speed. Look, when he breaks off his routes, when he's doing some of these comeback routes that I watched, like he's open by 5 yards because people are just so afraid. And there's been a lot of contested catches on the go balls. He has more long receptions than any rookie in the league, almost than any player in the league. He's averaging 18 yards per catch. I mean, he's in the top like 7 or 8 of just yards in the league right now. He is absolutely awesome. And yes, does it help that he's helping to confirm my priors. Let's throw up the tweet I had.
priors?
Yeah, before the draft when I wrote my only draft take so far is that you can't take Brian Thomas Jr. too high.
Okay, fine.
Feeling good about
This is
that
the
one.
least
Good.
surprising segment
Greg.
twist
I'm
ever.
feeling good. Because you know who else who rules? I rule. With
Oh,
that
no.
with that tweet. I'm sorry. I was not expecting to do that.
Security had to escort Greg
That just
Rosenthal
burst
out
out
of
of
the
him.
building today.
There's just been a lot of shows this week and not a lot of sleep and packing.
He had
and-
soup for lunch.
yeah.
I love soup for lunch.
I do
see nothing
too.
wrong with that.
The huddle went
Was it broccoli cheddar?
hard. No, it was pozole. And
It made you feel a little spicier than the normal.
it was
I think.
really
Yeah.
spicy. And I
Are you
love
okay?
spicy food. No, it was great. It was a lot. And I liked it. I just didn't expect such an intense lunch. But I applaud the huddle
That was before this
for
show?
going big. Yes.
Intense lunch, intense show. It all.
It was. I was sweating.
That's
That
aggressive.
that pozole was the Brian Thomas Jr. of the huddle's menu options, like big and bold and coming right out of the gate as one of the best in the league. And you got to recognize.
And you're getting on a plane right after this? I hope you're okay.
Is that like a bad?
We talked about digestive foods.
I was like, she thought soup would be good. Why am I going over this with you guys? All right, give me another guy who rules.
Okay. We saw him last night on the field, and he is not one of the players. He is one of my absolute favorite figures in the entire NFL. And no, it is not Big Red. It is Steve Spagnuolo. I love Spags so much. We know what he's been able to do with this defense and how for so many years it was the offense that was powering the Kansas City Chiefs. And then at some point last year, actually kind of from the beginning of the season, the defense quietly started being the engine of this team. And Steve Spagnuolo, he is just such an interesting person. He got married at the Vatican, which is just
Whoa.
like a really random fun fact. His wife, Maria, makes the most incredible Italian meatballs you've ever had in your life. And Chris Jones frequently will request the meatballs before big games. So she will make Chris Jones some homemade meatballs, and then he goes out and balls out for Steve Spagnuolo's defense. So he's just one of the nicest guys in the world, and he's so talented. I love to see his defenses thrive.
I love when he goes and tries to call timeouts, even
Yeah.
though he can't because he's not the head coach, but he's like transported to another time, a simpler time perhaps, where he could actually be the one to call the timeout.
He needs a shot. He needs a shot as a head coach again.
Does he though?
He does.
Because
He was not set up well.
no, he wasn't. And there are people in the Rams building at the time that would agree with you that that he could have been a really good head coach, and that was a brutal situation in St. Louis for a variety of reasons.
They were moving. all of
Personnel
it.
being part of it, and yes, that hanging over them being another. But I would push back and say when they showed those Super Bowl wins he had last night on the Monday Night Football
Yeah.
broadcast, I was just thinking like, wouldn't you rather have Steve Spagnuolo's career than virtually any head coach of the last like 25 years? Like, isn't it a good thing to be happy with what you do?
Ugh.
Maybe have like slightly less stress than the head man does, more job security because he's so good at what he does, working for a great man in Andy Reid that he loves with great players in a great situation. Like, isn't that better than basically almost any head coach resume and just life that you could come up with over the last like 15 years? He's done it.
I know I've talked about this on this show before, but it was just such a moment after the Super Bowl when I grabbed him and the confetti was still falling and he had tears in his eyes and he was just like, this defense we're never all going to be together again. And he just came from such a, like, it almost felt like a dad place.
Yeah.
Like, and these were his kids and he was so happy and so proud, but it was so bittersweet for him. And he just, I mean, losing L'Jarius Sneed, he wasn't sure obviously about Chris Jones, and you know how important Chris Jones is to that defense, but just those personal ties, it just makes me like him so much more because the game means so much to him and you can see those relationships, how they are in his life.
I don't doubt that he'll get interviews either, but I would posit that he, I think, is wise enough now to know the difference between jumping into a terrible job, which we talked about. I mean, there's a lot of them that can exist, and specific few in particular, and jumping into a bad one versus, accepting and really understanding the value of your own situation. I just think he's, I don't want to call him old, but he's wise enough, he's old enough, experienced enough to understand the difference between the two things because of all the experiences he's had. I also love that he reminds me of like someone who could be running a surf shop in Ventura.
Yes.
And then, but
he
then
has a shore house down at the Jersey Shore.
Okay, so then I was like, there's something beachy there going on. Yeah, there's something paddleboard situation.
Good job, Jordan.
Yeah.
I love that, and they're getting better every week too. Defensively, they're sort of the opposite of the Jets. They've had the second toughest schedule for defenses, and so that's why some of their numbers aren't like amazing. But now you watch in a game against like a Saints team, which isn't quite as good, and they dominate, but they've had to play Baltimore, they've had to play Cincinnati. These teams always get better as they go. And you're right, you're kind of like if I had a Colleen doll and you like pulled the string at the back to make her talk, like Colt stuff would come out and Steve Spagnuolo stuff would come out. There's always like every couple months we need a nice little Steve Spagnuolo.
Bag season. It's starting early this year.
I absolutely love it. All right, give us
okay, Pat Surtain.
Okay.
Rules.
That's a good one.
2 interceptions against the Raiders, including a 100-yard pick six, during which he reached a top speed of 20.92 miles per hour,
Whoa.
according to Next Gen Stats. 4 targets across 40 coverage snaps, so highly productive on the targets that he was given, I guess. So he has shadowed Mike Evans, DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson, George Pickens, and collectively allowed against those guys 8 catches for 85 yards and then just 2 more receptions this last weekend.
Crazy.
He's not actually been targeted much because why would you target him? But when he is, it's a 52.7 passer rating. And guys, this rules the most. Next Gen Stats always does these matchup boxes on their website. And they always go, Pat Surtain versus X receiver, Pat Surtain versus X receiver. And from the Raiders game, it literally just says Pat Surtain versus Raiders offense. This guy freaking rules.
He absolutely does. And I do like that more than other positions. It does feel like one cornerback always has the belt. That more than other positions, and maybe it's because they like to talk it up and it's the bravado of the position and you're just out there on an island and there's always like one quarterback who has it, cornerback, and right now it's Surtain.
I want him to, does he have a cool nickname? I want people to think
No, I'm not sure.
He's
He's
at that status, like lockdown status to where I think he deserves.
There's just like so few players in the game that even get a chance to do that. Like Sauce Gardner could do that, but they don't use him that way. They
call him Certain instead of Surtain.
Not bad.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's
Absolute
fine, but
certainty.
we need to start somewhere.
It's fine. All right, you know who's not fine? Having a trouble here. I'm not going to go under the radar. I'm going to go with CJ Stroud just because there are few players in the NFL that I would rather watch or hang out with. Like, he might be number one at the apex of just like, hey, if you could just get a beer with a player, CJ Stroud. He just seems like an awesome guy. But also, if there's one player I could choose to watch play the quarterback position, and I think if I was starting a team and just one quarterback I could have, I know there's a lot of great ones. It's CJ Stroud. I mean, some of the plays that he made in this Bills game, and yeah, he had the 2 turnovers. And if you're watching it on YouTube, you can see on the coaches film, just these throws into absolutely tight windows. He's the type of quarterback I love. Like, to me, he sees the game so beautifully. He can make every certain throw that you want to make, whether it's touch, whether it's power. The accuracy is crazy. He knows when to go for it. He goes through his reads so fast. And I think right now, he and Nico Collins are playing so well. It's totally covering up for a poor coaching job by this Texans offensive staff. Like, they are sloppy, not just the penalties and the terrible run blocking, but even the passing game seems a little disjointed. And there's a lot of pressure in CJ Stroud's face. And he just makes it work, and he would never blame. If anything, he is building everyone up around him. He seems like a true leader. He is my favorite player in the NFL. I think Gino's there too, but just like he is the dude, CJ Stroud.
Yeah, he rules. And you know what I like about him too, among many things, is that you knew that the defenses of the league were going to try to catch this offense this year. They were going to try to do different things to try to expose some of the weaknesses. Not having Joe Mixon also really has hurt them as well. But in terms of that lack of, I guess, cohesion that you're talking about, you knew that they were going to try to disrupt them in certain ways. But you have an elite problem solver in CJ Stroud. Not only do you have an elite tool, if you're a coach, an elite tool with which to problem solve, because CJ Stroud is that person and player, but he himself is doing that. He's not repeating mistakes, really. Very rarely do you see him make the same mistake twice in one game, let alone twice in one season. And that's other than the fact that he knows ball to the point where his quarterback and league takes are excellent.
Love that.
And I love that he doubles down on them too. Like he knows that he's right. And he kind of reminds me of you in a way, Greg. Like,
wow.
knows that he's right and doubles down.
Don't tell Greg that. My God.
No.
we build him up just to break him later in the show. That's But yeah, he rules. I'm with you 100% on.
He gets better every single week. It almost seems like. And the only thing I'm worried about now is Nico Collins being hurt and how that kind of changes the offense with all of the things that he's already making up for.
I think it would have been natural for him to take a little bit of a step back this year, with defenses preparing, and I think that is sort of happening opposite him, but he is just too good and too smart to let it happen to him individually. Problem solver is a great way to put it. Let's do a speed round before we go. So we'll just be quick on these.
Okay.
Rapid fire, go for it.
This is super quick. I will let you guys listen first to who my guy is that rules.
Okay.
Here we go, second down and goal. Mahomes in the gun, the 2 in New Orleans. P. Ryan in motion. There's the shotgun snap, the fake handoff, the quick throw at the goal line is deflected, and it's intercepted on the play by Saunders. He runs the big man, the 10, near sideline 20, on the near sideline 30. Got a blocking from behind. The former Chief is taken down. The Saints big man got it on the ricochet at the goal line on a pass intended for Smith-Schuster. That was a thick pick. That was a thick pick.
That's the part that I love. The thick pick. I mean, Kevin Harlan is my all-time favorite broadcaster. He comes up with these things right on the spot. I mean, there are some of the most epic games that I've listened to him call. The Black Cat that came out, the Jets game. I'll never forget that. I love when I leave here on Monday nights after I finish the pregame show with Mooch, I always put on Westwood One and I listen to Kevin Harlan and Kurt Warner on the call, and it's my favorite. And I text Kurt throughout the whole thing, and it's just Kevin Harlan. His voice is incredible. He's on it all of the time, and he's funny. He's low-key funny. Maybe high-key funny. I don't know.
I mean, as he's making that call, he is thinking in his head, thick pick. I have this to button it at the very end. And he's such a good broadcaster. No fault of Ross Tucker there, who's filling in for Kurt Warner, because I recognize that.
Ross did a good job of letting him take the lead there.
Absolutely, but Ross did kind of come in and stepped on the thick pick. So Kevin Harlan knows I need to say it again. To make sure everyone hears it. What a great call.
Amazing. I love it. Exactly. That's my guy.
I love it. Okay, I think that Tory Taylor, the Bears punter, rules. He is a 27-year-old rookie, an Aussie who didn't start playing football until 2019.
This
Caleb
is
Williams
me as a football player.
Caleb Williams famously texted him when he was drafted in the 4th round that they wouldn't be punting much. Plot twist, the Bears punted more through the first 4 games than any other team in the league. But he single-footedly ices teams by flipping field position. He iced the Rams game. His 4 punts that day, 4 of his punts that day were inside the 10, including the game-sealing one that landed at the 8. Jalen Johnson said, "I haven't been that pumped up for a punt in a long time." I love it. Tory Taylor rules.
I love his attitude. I heard him say, I want to go out there and dominate the game when I have the ball. I get to have the ball like 5 to 8 times a game. I want to dominate. You just don't hear punters
punter
talk
mentality.
I absolutely love that. My last guy who rules is Brock Bowers. This guy's better than I think we expected coming into the NFL. That touchdown that he had, his first career touchdown, that is one of the best first career touchdowns of all time, to moss a guy like that and then race in for the long score. He, I think, has as much burst as any tight end in the history of the league. Even just those little short routes that they were throwing to him on Sunday's game, Minshew, and his ability to go from 0 to 5 is special. It's crazy. It is so much better than most wide receivers. I mean, and he's playing tight end. I really think he has a chance to be an all-timer. And the more I watch him, I just think he's really exciting. He rules.
I'd call him a power receiver or something like a hybrid because he's going to be playing receiver, but he has the power and the strength and the ability of a tight end and can obviously do some things in the blocking surface as well. But like, we got to think of a different name for that position because he's going to be doing things that are not.
But he's out there. He's playing tight end. They're using him all over the place and stuff. He's doing the thing where he's messing up the opposing formations. He's playing a little fullback. He's blocking some too. He would probably rule a little more if he just came home, and just shaved that head. But he's going strong.
Oh, wow. Personal attack.
I mean, he knows it. He knows it. He's heard it a lot.
Brock Bowers is incredible. They do need some type of subset, though, in the tight end category for these incredible pass catchers. And Daniel Jeremiah talked about Brock Bowers leading into the draft, how great and talented he is and how he should be taken as high as he ended up going.
And I think he's already right there with the best players at his position as a rookie, which is wild.